Welcome to KetoMealsAndRecipes.com. Today I'm making this simple but flavorful cream of mushroom soup. The macronutrient ratio is 7.5 to 1 with 8.3 grams of total carbs, 2.1 grams of dietary fiber, resulting in 6.2 grams of net carbs per serving. This recipe has been adapted and modified from Chef Heston's recipe. And as he says, this soup is wonderful even if you only use button mushrooms. So here's a quick tip on how to determine if your mushrooms are fresh. To choose the best mushrooms, look on the underside where the stem is. The entire section underneath should be sealed and none of the mushroom gills should be showing. This is how you can tell that the mushroom is fresh and at its peak flavor. The other thing I'd like to recommend is that you don't actually wash your mushrooms. Just take a clean towel and wipe each of the mushrooms off carefully to get rid of any residual dirt from the surface, and then cut a thin section of the bottom of the stem and discard that. For best results, you want your mushrooms to be completely dry before you pan fry them. After you've cleaned all your mushrooms, then slice the mushrooms into even thin sections. Because we're weighing everything out, place your bowl over the kitchen scale and set to 0. As you're cutting your mushrooms, add them to the scale and cut enough of the button mushrooms to get to 800 grams total, or as close as you can get to the correct weight. In this version of the mushroom soup, I'm also going to add some portobello mushrooms. Again, tear the scale and add about 100 grams of portobello mushrooms. One of the other mushrooms I like to add to my soup when I have them on hand are oyster mushrooms. I also add 100 grams of these mushrooms. In his recipe, Heston uses porcini and shiitake mushrooms, and he dries them out in his oven and then grinds them to a powder. He uses this to sprinkle on top of the soup. The sprinkling of the dried mushroom also adds a great deal of flavor, but for my day-to-day use of this soup, this is too much work and expense for me, so I only do this on special occasions. Then using my scale again, I weighed out my butter, or a really good substitute is a good quality ghee. Then I placed my pot over medium heat, and when the pot was hot, I added all but 2 tablespoons of my ghee or butter, and waited until it melted. When the butter is sizzling, add the sliced mushrooms and increase the heat to high. You want the mushrooms to fry up quickly so that you maintain most of the flavor and nutrient value. After adding the mushrooms to the pot, let the mushrooms cook for a few minutes without stirring. As they're cooking and the water is evaporating from the mushrooms, they will start to reduce in mass. At this point, stir and toss occasionally until they cook and become slightly crispy and brown. While the mushrooms are cooking, and in a separate pot, I added the remaining ghee or butter, and when it was melted, I added my chopped onions. I sautéed the onions until they became clear. At this point, my mushrooms appeared done. I removed a few nice shaped mushrooms and set them aside. I'll use these to garnish my soup when I serve it. Now add the onions and any butter or ghee that's left in the pot to the mushrooms. Stir to combine the 2 ingredients. Add the red wine, or if you prefer, substitute with red wine vinegar or apple cider vinegar. If you're adding the red wine and you're concerned about the alcohol, remember that all the alcohol will evaporate because you're cooking the mushrooms on high heat. But the acid in the wine or vinegar will help to bring out the full flavor of the mushrooms and sweeten the taste of the onions. Stir and cook all the ingredients for a couple minutes. After a few minutes, add the chicken stock and the thyme sprigs and bring back to a boil. Also add 1 teaspoon of garlic. Stir and continue to cook. Once it's boiling, cook for 10 more minutes. Add the cream. Stir and continue to cook while it's slightly boiling for another 5 minutes. This will remove the raw taste from the cream and have all the flavors blend well. With a fork, scoop out your thyme sprigs and discard them. Now it's time to add the final seasoning. Here I add the salt and pepper and I stir well, because we all taste salt differently. Taste and adjust the salt to your preference. Using a ladle, scoop out the contents and put into your blender, bullet, or ninja, whatever you prefer to use. But do not overfill, only add to about the halfway point. Puree while the soup is hot. As I said, do this in small batches. Puree long enough to ensure that all the mushrooms have been ground well and your soup has a smooth velvety texture. When done, pour each finished pureed batch into a serving tureen, which I divided into 6 servings, equaling 314 grams in each bowl. Lastly, before serving, I garnished with the reserved mushrooms. Enjoy. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. The link for the printable recipe is provided in the description below.